The United States has expressed concern about the ongoing unrest in Burundi. The U.S. State Department has warned incidents of violence reported ahead of the May 7 referendum risk destabilizing the country. Burundi is set to vote on amendments to the constitution that would extend the president's term of office. Opposition parties have protested against the proposal. On Monday, a court sentenced an official from Burundi's ruling party to 3 years in jail. He was found guilty of calling for the drowning of any government opponents. Nearly 430,000 people have fled Burundi. President Pierre Nkurunziza won a third term in a 2015 election that led to violent clashes. Well, let's bring you more now on the U.S. perspective on this story. We're joined live from Washington, D.C. by our correspondent, Daniel Reinches. Daniel, as we understand, of course, the U.S. is denouncing this political violence in Burundi ahead of the vote. What is Washington's key concern?
They are concerned that the referendum itself will be interpreted as a way to reset the presidential term limits, and also that the Arusha Accords, which set the stage for a measure of stability in the country for many years, may be undermined as a result of this referendum, and therefore lead to more instability and effectively undermine any more of that political balance achieved during that period. They are also obviously concerned about the levels of violence and intimidation and the general sense in which opponents or perceived opponents of the referendum are being treated by the government-backed supporters. As well as that, I think they have a general concern that going into this poll, those who want to express free and fair opinions will not be able to do so. And all of this comes in the context of a growing level of violence and instability since President Nkurunziza announced the decision to have the referendum. So I think that the US at this point is trying to say to the authorities there that they are deeply concerned that Burundi is continuing to go in the wrong direction.
And of course, that's a sentiment they share with the opposition parties who claim that there should have at least been some wider consultations before reaching this referendum decision. Do you think the US might consider engaging with Burundi's leadership to somehow address these concerns and possibly find a way forward?
Well, in recent years, as you know, the international engagement has declined. So some of the major players include the United States, Belgium, the European Union, the Netherlands, the United Nations. All of them have seen a decline of influence. That makes it more difficult for them to find a point of leverage with the Burundian government to urge them to adopt more balanced political policies and try to discourage the sort of violence that we're seeing. Now, the problem for the United States is this, that they simply do not have a point where they can say, these are the things that we're going to take away. They can't simply say we're going to take away the remaining humanitarian aid. And indeed, the statement that they've given today seems to signal to the Burundian people that that will be maintained. A lot of that aid is life-supporting in one of the world's poorest countries. So it comes down, in a sense, to a decision by the Burundian authorities to push aside concerns about international isolation. But what the Trump administration is trying to point out here is that despite the fact that there's this wide perception that President Donald Trump isn't fully engaged in Africa, nonetheless, there are many diplomats in Burundi that are continuing to express concern about this, are watching these developments, and will be prepared to do what they can should the situation further deteriorate. So I think there is a broader concern, as well as the referendum, about the levels of instability in the country.
Indeed, a situation that many will be watching closely over the next week or so. Thanks very much, Daniel Reinches, joining us there live from Washington.